What's going on? What's going on? Thank you guys for tuning in. Big night over here at American Dystopia. Apparently, I think I might be getting good at this. And somehow, some way, I snagged an actual, for the first guest ever, a pretty great guest, if I may say. But I snagged a guest, an actual author. And not only an author, but a pretty bright guy, pretty sharp guy at that. And he's got a book that he's just recently released, and we're gonna talk a little bit about his book, his journey, as they say. And I'm gonna pick his brain. Excuse me. I'm gonna pick his brain a little bit about a few ideas, because us over here in the red pilled and red pill light community, we tend to butt heads with some of the guys from the normie world, as they said. So he made some interesting statements recently that I would like to explore. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today.
What's good?
Adam B. Coleman. What's going on, bro? Good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for appearing tonight. This is so amazing for me.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I'm a big fan.
Thank you. I'm always amazed when people say that stuff. I'm like, for real? Like, all I do is come and talk shit. I'm like kind of crazy on the internet.
Yeah, that's why I love you.
But hey, it's cool, man. If it works, it works. But
yeah.
Right. Let's just jump right into it. So before I even start asking you too many specific questions, you could probably introduce yourself far better than I could right now. So if you could just give us a quick rundown, who are you and what was your journey to bring you to this moment in life where you wrote the book From Victor? And can you say the full title? Actually, you know what? I'm tripping. I have it right up here. Black Victim to Black Victor, identifying the ideologies, behavioral patterns, and cultural norms that encourage a victimhood complex. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah. So my name is Adam Coleman. I'm 37 years old. I'm just an average American. I'm really big into the culture war that's been kind of going on for a number of years. Shout out to Donald. Thank you for supporting me. But basically, I decided to sit down and start writing after George Floyd. I didn't really write too much. I have my own opinions, my own thoughts. But I saw that the kind of like the rhetoric that was going around was unhealthy, unproductive, and it didn't allow for almost like a dissenting viewpoint, or like an opposing viewpoint, I should say. So at first I started looking for avenues to express myself outside of like Twitter and Facebook, and just discussing things with people with different mindsets. And I got encouraged to write, and I had been wanting to actually write a book for a number of years. I just didn't have a topic to write about. And that was the perfect moment for me to sit down and start writing. So I had encouragement along the way with a select few people who knew I was actually sitting down and writing. It was a decent process, about 9 to 10 months before I was able to release it. And yeah, now I'm a self-published author, and now I'm writing all the time for my website and for ScoonTV. My website is Wrong Speak Publishing. So I'm also encouraging people to write articles, and even some people who want to write books. So that's kind of been like a unexpected consequence of actually publishing a book, because a lot of people want that encouragement, but they don't know how to go about it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's something I wanted to, the encouragement it was in line with a question I wanted to ask already.
Yeah.
Self-publishing. Now, a lot of people would just assume, you write a book, you take it to a publisher, and if they like you, they put it out, and then, the checks come. That's the short story. Mm-hmm. What led you to the path to self-publish your book?
The biggest thing was, in the very beginning, I had no idea which route I wanted to go. So I just looked at the pros and cons. And from my particular situation, self-publishing was far easier. And the biggest thing was I wanted to be able to write a book that was as open, honest, critical, and in some ways politically incorrect as possible without being completely offensive. And I know that there are cases where publishers censor. So I didn't want to go through that as a potential. I wanted to have whatever I finish is what I publish. So that was a big thing for me. It's a long process to try and convince a publisher to take on someone who's an unknown. A lot of publishers kind of want a guarantee that they're going to sell copies. And if you're a nobody, why would they have that guarantee? Which is why they'd much rather sign someone who has even just like 15 minutes of fame. So, being an average guy, I would have less likely of finding that. So it just made more sense for me to go through the process. And to be honest with you, it wasn't that difficult. The hardest part about publishing a book is actually editing. It felt like it took forever to edit the book. And even while you're writing the book, you're at least editing a little bit. So that's something that a lot of people don't realize. Even when you think you're done, you're not done. You have to go back and edit, and then edit some more and continue editing. So it was extremely frustrating, that part. So yeah, if I answer your question there.
No, absolutely. I actually wanted to jump into the book a little bit. Now, you said it was the George Floyd event that kind of spurred you to get to writing this book. And that's interesting to me in that around that time, I had not even wanted to actually do a YouTube channel. Maybe I was just starting to get the idea, because what happened is, actually, I'm not sure if Floyd was the first one. I think before George Floyd, there was a Ahmaud Arbery. I may be wrong.
I think he was. Yeah, I think he was just before him. Yeah.
I was a little fuzzy about the sequence of events, but what I noticed is I tend to hang out in what's called the Black Manosphere. It's that little sector of YouTube, and around that time, I got into some severe debates over that particular issue of Ahmaud Arbery, and then the Floyd thing. And what I found myself doing was what I noticed was a sort of division, and what I didn't understand why at first, but I noticed a division in even the manosphere. And that was the beginning of me sort of starting, to speak my mind, I guess. And we were similar in that way. And I wanted to ask you specifically, what about the Floyd event? Because you said there were some narratives and some things being said that didn't quite sit well with you. So I kind of wanted to flesh that idea out with you a little bit. And I assume that's kind of part of what's in the book.
Yeah. It basically, what didn't sit well with me was taking that one incident, and mind you, at the time, all we had was 12-minute, I forget how long the clip was, but we just had the clip with the Chauvin's knee on his neck or in his shoulder. So that's really all we had to go by. But they took that situation and they extrapolated it into, this is something that happens all the time, that is extremely common, and Black men in particular are always in constant danger of the police. And police/white people. Let's just be frank with it. So for me, as someone I've lived in 5 states throughout my life. I've lived in multiple neighborhoods. I've had encounters with the police. Never been arrested or anything like that, but I've had dialogues. I've had situations. I've been pulled over. I've had my car searched. I've had different things happen to me in my life. And granted, my life is an anecdote. But I felt like that was a dangerous narrative to put out there, to make it seem like this is what we fear on a constant basis. And I remember years ago, there were a string of incidents that hit the news. And this is before like my mindset had changed, but there were a string of incidents that hit the news, and they involved the police. I honestly, I can't remember who the people were, but I remember it was like maybe 2 or 3 incidents that seemed to have happened within like a month, 2 months. And I had gotten pulled over, and I remember the cop walking over, and I was just shaking. And after the incident, I don't even think I got a ticket or anything like that. But afterwards, I was like, why was I so scared? And, mind you, at the time, I never drank. I've never been drunk. I've never done drugs or anything like that. I'm not a criminal. I have no criminal history. I have nothing like that. So why was I so scared of the police at that particular moment? And when I think about that, it was completely illogical. But the reason being is because of the messaging from the media. They're pumping fear, and they're pumping fear for Black people to be constantly scared. And that fear drives ratings. That fear gets us motivated to, protest, hit the streets. But someone is always profiting off of our fear. And in the case of George Floyd, someone's profiting off of our pain. So that's kind of like what would really push me, because I wanted to ask, why was that narrative so strong in this past year than any other time? And why did everybody believe it? It's one thing, we've had situations like Trayvon Martin that becomes kind of like a rally cry situation. The media goes after the trial and everything like that. It becomes like a little bit of a circus, but it wasn't anything like what George Floyd turned into. And even with the Trayvon Martin situation, it didn't feel, I guess the best way of putting it, it didn't feel like it did this past year, where everybody really believed that. And I wanted to refute that. I wanted to find a way for me to express myself and refute this and use statistics to prove otherwise, which is why in the book I talk about how, and I use the 2019 statistics. There were more people who were killed by lightning strikes than Black unarmed men, or I should say unarmed people, by the hands of the police. So, we don't have, nonprofits for the victims of lightning strikes. We don't go out in the streets and put in legislation of, to stop people from getting struck by lightning. But we do that for the most rare of situations. And mind you, I would venture to say that someone who is Black, unarmed, and killed by the hands of the police is even rarer than lightning strikes, because we have millions upon millions of police encounters with Americans on a yearly basis. So it's unfortunate when it happens, but it's extremely rare to the point where it's not something that we should be completely alarmed by. If there's injustice, feel free to protest. If there's injustice, feel free to speak your mind. If you have a corrupt police, police force, like the NYPD with the stop and frisk, to me, that was a violation of civil liberties. All right, fine, you go for that. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with people protesting or anything like that. My problem is when you move that one situation and make it into a greater point, and then on top of that, you profit off of it. That's where I really have a problem with it.
Well, let me ask you this question then. What do you think is the overall effect? And I'm kind of asking you to prognosticate a little bit here, look into the future. But what do you think is the overall effect of these constant messages, and not just like the last 20 years worth, but maybe just the last 2 or 3 years worth of this constant drumbeat of division and anger and fear that's being pumped into the Black community? What is your prediction about the overall effects this will have on the community going down the road?
Well, I don't really need a prediction. It's happening now. We have people, whether they be Black or white, because this is an American issue that's happening. We have Black people who feel that they are victims, and that they're either a victim now or a potential victim, and they're on constant paranoia. And then we have white people who feel that they have to be Black people's saviors. So, I'll be honest, when I've done some speaking engagements, and I've done speaking engagements in front of white people, and I tell them very specifically, do not attempt to save Black people, because the more that you attempt to save Black people, the more you are hurting people. This idea that America has to pull Black people up, I think is offensive. That's saying that we're unable to do for ourselves. And I think it's even worse that there are Black people who are constantly reaching out for a handout, or reaching out for acceptance from white people, or reaching out for the government to give them something, to beg for reparations, when they don't realize that they're being used on a constant basis. They're being used for a political ploy or as a pawn. I use the example of, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, you know what I find particularly offensive about that, and this is
Mhm.
a bit of a historical like memory hole. Like we just almost forgot this. Even though we complain about black people not getting reparations to the point where it's like we will never let that go.
Right.
People who were most deserving of reparations and did not get it seem to have been more together. You know, it's a clumsy word for it, but they had it together a lot more. Like the years after slavery were the beginnings, well, not the beginnings. I mean, there was black first during slavery, most likely, without even researching. But we know for a fact that was a ton of black first came immediately after slavery. Reconstruction was a little bit of a golden era.
Mhm.
And you know, once that, you know, the removal of the Union forces kind of led to the end of that, things spiraled out of control in a lot of ways. But what I'm struck by is this insistence that we need reparations to somehow be whole, when the people who came directly out of reparations and arguably needed it the most were in
Mhm.
fact objectively more whole than we seem to be today. It's a fascinating turn of the table. Like I don't understand how we insist on having something that our ancestors who needed it most didn't have, and they did well. It's amazing that we lost that story along the way.
Yeah, and you know, I will go to what I find to be the number one issue, and the number one issue is broken families. It's as plain and simple. And if you look at broken families, it affects literally everything that people complain about as far as the disparities between Black people and let's just say white people, for example. But the reason they were together is because the family was together, and also I would throw in the caveat that they were strong in faith. Overwhelmingly, Black Americans were Christians. The Black church really meant something, and what we're seeing now is that the church has been corrupted, um, and we're seeing that the Black family is separated. Even relations between Black men and Black women is kind of toxic. And you know, this is just stuff I've been noticing, especially within the past couple of years, even to the point like we don't know how to talk to each other. We have high skepticism of Black women. I'm not saying that it's not justified, and I put in the book situations where the negative attitudes of Black women is contributing to the broken family, but there are things on the Black male side that are contributing as well. So, you know, I'm an equal opportunity critic. You know, I talk about myself as well and my imperfections. I talk about my father in the book as well, who was basically never in my life. I talk about my mother's portion um, in regards to my upbringing as well, because one thing that is politically incorrect is to say to women, "Why are you choosing these particular men?" You know, the women choose who they have sex with, without a doubt. Guys will fuck anything, but the
Yeah,
women choose.
don't we know it? Can
Yeah.
I I want you to expound a little bit on a short quote from the novel here. Why am I told to distrust the white man when I couldn't even depend on my black father? Could you expound on that a little bit? Where were you going when you laid that idea out?
Basically, the idea that we are supposed to default to trusting someone simply because of their skin color. You know, as someone who's been around multiple races, multiple people, even people who, you know, distant relatives of mine, they've done some shady stuff, and they were Black, and they did some shady stuff to their family, and they were Black. You know, so you know, this idea that morality has a particular skin color, or you know, or if we were to extrapolate it to government, that corruption has a skin color. That is the trappings that we always fall into, and that's why we constantly get screwed over. So you should look at people for their character. You know, I go by the general principle of MLK, you know, judge people by the content of their character. But once you start defaulting to someone's skin color as if that is their moral compass that you should follow, that's when you fall into these constant traps. That's when you get screwed over.
Well,
And
more specifically though, what was the other side of that coin? Like
mhm.
the effects of not having a father you could trust. That I wanted to kind of walk down that path a little bit
Oh,
because
okay.
go a little bit further into these red pill male female disorder kind of conversation here.
Mm-hmm. You know, when I think about it now and I look back at my childhood, my father was just simply put wasn't there. Granted, we did move quite a bit, and I try to be fair as far as was our distance the reason why he wasn't around. But when I think about it, when I was a kid and we lived in the same area, I don't remember seeing him much. And the fact of the matter is, my father was married. He just wasn't married to my mother. And he was married the whole time they were having a relationship. So we were the other children, and we were always going to be the other children. And our relationship was destined to be separate from, his actual family. So I couldn't depend on him as a kid, and I suffered because of it. I struggled throughout my teenage years, especially. Well, throughout my childhood, my entire childhood, I struggled. I struggled with figuring out how to be a man. I struggled with being masculine, to the point, yeah, to the point of being uncomfortable around other men at times. I wasn't used to it. For example, I'll give you an example. I'd be a teenager, and my mom would be like, go to the barber shop and get a haircut. And this is, black masculine, haven. And, guys, loud talking guys and, talking shit, talking about music, women, and all this stuff. And I'm very quiet and reserved. And it's kind of uncomfortable for me. I wasn't used to being around men. I grew up with my sister and my mother, and we moved a lot. And this was something that was unfamiliar for me. This is a deficiency for me that I had to overcome over a period of time. So that's just like one. It seems like kind of like a small thing, but it's one thing that led into another thing. I struggled with like confidence. Your father's supposed to help build your confidence. I struggled with all these different things, and basically I was a deficient child. And we don't really look at it that way, but kids who are neglected by one particular parent are deficient in some particular way.
That's interesting you say that, because I lost my father recently, and I had I got to thank you. I got together with some of my brothers, and it's I had a somewhat opposite experience of what you just described, in that my mom and dad weren't ever married. It wasn't really that kind of deal, but my dad never married anyone he had a child with. And so we were all outside kids to one another. So, recently, we were getting together, and there were 5 of us, and there was only 3 of us together. And I was just sort of thinking about the whole deal. Like, the brothers I have are essentially like strangers to me, and I'm a grown man, and it's a sad state of affairs, but it's probably way more common than we like to acknowledge. And
yeah,
what I was struck with is that I wonder how much more effective I had been, how much more effective we all could be, maybe, if we had a grown up together, as opposed to individually in atomized situations. And so you will never know, but these are the sort of the unanswered questions, and all you could do is sort of ponder what would have been. But and when you become an adult, especially as a man, and are you a father yet? I know you recently got married. I want to congratulate you on that.
I'm actually getting married next month, but I do have a son.
Out of order.
Yeah, I went out of order.
What I was going to say is that when you become an adult man, and even when a father, you start to ponder these questions a little bit more, and then sometimes the answers make you question what you grew up with, because it's like, damn, that was really off base. And I want to ask you something else a little bit. The question on the screen here: did Thomas Sowell have any influence in your findings? Because Sowell was a big major figure in my Black conservatism, and I was curious as how he fits in your view of things.
Yeah, he did actually. And just to give a little background, I'm a former Democrat, former liberal, just like many current conservative or current libertarian-minded people. Thomas Sowell was one piece in the puzzle as far as seeing things from a different perspective than I had ever been told. I'm a relatively intelligent person, and you can only do with the information that you're given. So I lived in a bubble. I lived in a MSNBC, CNN bubble. And I took that information, I analyzed it the best I could. I used to watch Bill Maher all the time, for example. And, I was a left leaning liberal. I wasn't a leftist. I was never hardcore, anything like that. But I lived in a liberal bubble. And my viewpoints on Republicans came from a liberal perspective. I would watch, let's say, The Daily Show, and they would show snippets of Fox News, but I never actually watched Fox News. And it wasn't until not just Thomas Sowell, but other people that I came across, other conservative-minded people, and I just opened my mind a little bit, and it started listening and seeing what made sense. Man, I can't remember his name, but he's a libertarian businessman, but he talks about economy, and the way he broke things down, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And I had never heard this particular perspective. Started watching like Joe Rogan and being introduced to different minds. And so, I just became a little bit more open-minded. But in the book, I give a lot of credit to a guy I met while I was traveling in Madrid. He was a British conservative, and he, white British guy, introduced me to Thomas Sowell. And I had been into politics for about 10 or so years, and I had never heard of Thomas Sowell. So, if it wasn't for him and me having a good faith with him, and not thinking that he's coming from a bad place, he's actually coming from a really good place. And his friendship means a lot to me. That's one of the things that led me down the rabbit hole. So yeah.
Well, let me ask you this as a little bit of a follow-up. And your observations of Black America, why do you suppose Thomas Sowell and men of his ilk, the Walter Williams and the Glenn Lowrys, John McWhorter, there are tons of Black men, conservatives, and maybe one or two Black women on that side of the fence too, who are relatively intellectual powerhouses, yet they don't get the street cred, if you will, as an Ibram X. Kendi or anyone who writes one of these books with the pyramids and Ankhs on the cover and shit like that.
So your question is, why don't they basically get the shine that Ibram X. Kendi does? The simple answer is that Black victimhood sells. It's as simple as that, and when you line things up in a perspective that says, hey, part of it is our fault, but that's not a necessarily bad thing. That means that we can fix it. Nobody likes to hear that. And I think America has gotten far too comfortable with seeing Black Americans as the white man's burden, where they always have to look after us. They always have to do for us. They always have to advocate for us, to the point where politicians purposely use that as a political pawn or political game. So, for example, when Democrats don't get what they like in Georgia for their voting laws, immediately they say this is Jim Crow 2.0 to bring out some sort of historical trauma that we're supposed to feel as Black people. And why would they do that? Why would you invoke literally something that the government enforced, the separation of people based on their skin color? Why would you invoke that particular phrasing when we're just talking about a slight change in how you vote? Like, I don't know, if you work with a political party, you can't give someone water who's standing in line. They could be seen as you trying to bribe them for votes. That makes somewhat sense. And even if you don't agree with that, that has nothing to do with fucking Jim Crow. It's that kind of thing that I see all the time. And anytime I've basically been trained now to, if I hear anyone invoke Jim Crow as slavery along with a policy, I know that they're full of shit. As simple as that.
Hold on now, hold on. I'm gonna call you on that. Right? I'm gonna call you on that here because
Okay.
you know what? I say this all the time, and it's almost tongue in cheek, but I do not believe in systemic racism as a concept,
Okay.
unless we are talking about programs and initiatives that the left majorly supports. So that being said, how do you juxtapose everything you just said about these false calls to Jim Crow, these little boy cried wolf things, and
Mhm.
how do you juxtapose that with this new modern Jim Crow, which I like to call Jab Crow, which is this vaccine mandate where, by the numbers at least, Black people are the greatest ethnic population to reduce the vaccine. And if you were to implement mandates on a society, you are effectively creating a Jim Crow in which the Black people who are resistant to accepting this inoculation will now be forced out of civil life. And so as I'm watching this thing play out, I can't help but to think, yeah, this is kind of looking like.
This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
Ah, shit. Okay.
You tell me, is that
Yeah.
a Jim Crowy thing coming back? To beat a dead horse. I'm just saying it looks like it.
That's a fair comparison in that respect, because what you're talking about is separating people based on some sort of classification. And it coincidentally is going to affect Black Americans more than any other demographic. Now, I guess the question comes into, and this is not me trying to say which way or the other. Are we talking about it being done intentionally or just consequently? You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes certain things happen, and the consequence of that is that it affects some people more than other people. Or are we saying that it was done purposefully to hurt Black people? You can argue that Jim Crow from during the South decades ago was specifically targeting Black people to affect their lives more so. So that's something that's considered as deliberate. This, I don't know. I mean, it's everyone's opinion. But see, here's the thing. If we were to go down that rabbit hole and say that because it has a disparity for Black people when it comes to the virus and getting, or I should say the vaccine, then what we're effectively doing is saying that Ibram X. Kendi is right. You see what I'm saying?
Hey, hold on. Now you just kind of stirred the brain cells a little bit. What do you mean by Ibram X. Kendi is right? I need you to walk me through this argument one more time.
Sure. So basically, Ibram X. Kendi's argument is that what racism is in America is any disparity between the racial groups that negatively affects minorities or specifically Black people. So income disparity. While the disparity exists because of systemic racism, and and however you want to grab that into there, but his big thing is disparities. So incarceration disparities, percentage-wise, income, you go down the list. So if we were to say that the vaccine mandates disproportionately affects Black people, then we're going down the rabbit hole of saying that, well, this is a disparity that is caused by systemic racism. So, that's kind of like the rabbit hole that we're leading down. Yeah.
That's the beauty of the attack, actually, because in my opinion, it's a little bit of a subversive attack, because what you're doing is taking the rules of leftism and using it against leftists. I'm like, all right, well, if you guys say systemic racism is anything where the numbers put Black people in a bad light, doesn't necessarily matter if it was, purposeful or not.
Right.
Well, there you go. Well, here's a great example, and it's being pushed exclusively by you guys. Like, I just think that's a fascinating state of play that we're in right now, and
Right.
not a lot of people are calling it out on those terms. But we're going to leave that for a minute, because I want to actually. Oh, by the way, is there an actual link to book purchases that I could drop in the chat here? If you type something in the chat, or if you type in the YouTube chat, not in the StreamYards chat, I will see you, and I can mod you up, and that way you can post any links you have directly in the chat yourself.
I gotta open up another window, but basically, if you go to blackvictim2victor.com, That will bring you to the book page, and there's links. You can either purchase a book from the website directly if you don't want to purchase it from Amazon, or you can click the link to purchase it from Amazon. You can also, open up your Amazon app and search it, or you can purchase it from barnesandnoble.com. But it's Black Victim to Victor, TO Victor.com.
Rex, you came in probably just a little bit late. We explored that. We were talking about essentially the George Floyd protest, and then even the Ahmaud Arbery thing. That whole cauldron of events that sort of kind of set the country on a different path, and apparently it set up a lot of fires in a lot of people's minds. I would like to now switch gears just a little bit,
Sure.
and once again, I would like to congratulate you on your upcoming nuptials. And
Thank you.
I want to explore this a little bit because when did this come out? Let me pull up here and see. August 23rd. So that was this morning. You released an article on your own website, wrongspeak.net. Let me actually click this link because I have this up perfect, and I will throw this in the chat for anyone who wants to take a look. But oh shoot, what did I just do? I wanted to ask you some questions about this article that you wrote in particular. Well, let's just actually tackle the title first before we delve into more specifics here.
Sure. Why
I still believe in marriage despite being red pilled. So just give me a quick, 2 minutes answer to that short question.
So basically, from my perspective, I've always been pro-marriage. And even in the article, I kind of do like a little bit of psychology on myself, where I'm saying basically, maybe it has something to do with growing up in a single parent home where I want the opposite. I want marriage. I want that security. I want that family. But that's with, for me personally. But the other part of it is being red pilled allows for me to understand fully all the risks, right? So I understand the divorce rate. I understand it's initiated mostly by women. It's about 80%. I understand, the potential consequences of a divorce. I understand all these things. I understand all the potential negatives. So for me, the institution isn't necessarily the problem. What's the problem is everything else that surrounds it. And also what's the problem is women's approach when it comes to marriage, I would say, where they're easy. It makes it a lot easier for them to throw it away. It's low risk for women to end a relationship. It's high risk for men to lose it, which is why men are more willing to stay within a marriage versus, the phrase is cheaper to keep her. So I understand all of these things, and that's the good thing about being red pilled. I'm well aware of all these things. But what that did for me was put even more emphasis on who I am deciding to marry. And one thing, if I can, in the article, I'm being critical of the red pill community somewhat, is we need to put more emphasis on what men should look for before they decide to marry a woman, rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater and saying, don't do it. It's done with. It's bad, and just keep moving on. Regardless of that fact, they can say that every single day of their life. The thing is, men still want to get married, and you're not going to stop that. So if men still want to get married and you want to help them, just in general, men want to help other men, then what you need to do is give them all the information to be prepared for marriage, advocate for certain activities to happen, tell them to vet women properly, tell them things to look for, ask certain questions. And being red pills allowed for me to literally do that. I watch red pill content with my fiance, and I've done it for the past couple of years. She used to go from not liking Kevin Samuels, for example, to saying, go ahead, put some Kevin Samuels on. And she started understanding the male perspective. and we would sit there and turn it off and talk for an hour or two about a particular topic. So the red pill content has helped my relationship. It's helped me personally. It's helped me, with confidence and all these different things, all the deficiencies that I was talking about earlier.
Well, let me cut you off right there real quick before you go on further, because I wanted to say this, and this is a weird turn of events in my own life. I met a new woman a couple of months ago, and everything was going well in the beginning, but I knew going in, you have to be red pill from day one. And that very thing you just said, I mean, the literal fucking thing you just said was the exact thing that could not work. She hated the existence of Kevin Samuels. It was an actual point of contention between two of us. And I'm not even a cheerleader or a fan of his in that major way, but I agree and I respect the game, you know what I'm saying? But I agree with the message overall. And going in, I just knew, I mean, after a while, it just became apparent, like, yeah, this is not going to go. Because, like, what am I to do with this? We live in separate worlds, and you kind of have acknowledge that reality, otherwise, and obviously as time went on, it fell apart. But the what you just said is kind of like, it's such a pain, but it's true. Like you can't afford to sugarcoat anything at this point.
Right.
And,
right.
You mentioned well, let me start over. You were on the Susan Venker show, and I'm going to pull up a clip, and I'm going to play a clip of you specifically, and I want to go off on a tangent about what you're about to say here. But I want you to answer a quick question, because this is a little bit funny. I know people, listen, it's the internet. Guys are going to rib you and all. You got to take the hits and shit. But apparently, in the comments after the Susan Venker episode, one guy, because you mentioned this in the article, so there's a specific reason why I'm even pulling this up, because at the very last sentence in the article, you said, well, not the last sentence, rather, but right in the middle of the article, you said, one man going as far as to calling me a simp for simply wanting marriage. And you just sort of answered it almost, men do want marriage, regardless of all the dangers, regardless of the sticking your head in the lion's mouth kind of trap it feels like. What is it you believe makes men, let's say, attack you in this way? It's a mild attack, but, it's a relative attack. And what do you think men are sort of, what turf are we defending with this sort of language and these sorts of attacks?
In the article, I basically line out, it's surrounded by fear. So, women, especially modern day women, they have a certain level of fear when it comes to marriage. Their fear is different. It's for different reasons. But for the men, their fear, I would say most of it surrounds losing property, losing money, resources. That's a really big thing. Men are big on time. So a failed relationship signifies, like, I wasted my time with this woman. My time's important. My time is linked to money. I spent all this money on her. I put her through school. I did, it's that kind of thing. And anytime men spend money on a woman on a substantial amount, and it doesn't work out the way they want, it's very offensive. I understand it. It's like if you go out on a really nice date with a woman and she never calls you back, you're like, fuck, I just spent like $100 on this date, and I didn't get nothing from it. So it's that kind of, I think I'm answering your question properly. That's one of the things that's kind of driving it. It's that fear of losing resources. It's the main issue that's happening.
Okay, I can accept that. I don't even want to dig too much further. I do want to play this clip from your last interview. I mean, from a recent interview with a Miss Suzanne Venker. Let's jump right in.
It was, what I was doing and what my marriage looked like in the first 10 years looks different from the next 10 years, and you have to be able to be flexible and adaptable.
Right. And also, the whole idea that women, like what you're saying, women must be dependent on men. We don't ever talk about how men are dependent on women. Like, men need women too. And it's equally important. Like you said, we're different, but we need each other. Men and women are far better together than we are apart. And I don't like the narrative that men view women as just convenient sex objects and that they provide nothing else. I mean,
that right there.
Yep.
Now, I want to kind of explore this a little bit and ask you to consider something. the concept of MGTOW, right? The men going their own way. It's almost, you know, forbidden language on YouTube at this point. But what I seem to take away from that whole movement as I absorb their information that they put out is almost a game of chicken, where you kind of laid out an idea that MGTOWs would reject wholeheartedly and laughingly, like, I don't need a woman and I'm content with making a woman merely a sexual object in my life, however that looks. So what I would ask you is, what do you think is happening to make men want to play this game of chicken and actually say, no, what? Maybe I don't need women, because I'm telling you, there's a huge world of men. If you were to make that statement on less friendly territory, you would have went down a whole spiral of argument behind that very concept of men needing women, and arguably the concept of men needing women in any kind of way, they would maybe even present to you as a weakness on the male part. And so I would sort of, you know, address that idea.
Yeah. So in the context of that, I kind of gave some examples. So for example, if we were to say on a balance of averages, who's more detail oriented, men or women? You would say women are more detail oriented. Who on a balance of averages, who's more cleanly? Women tend to be more cleanly. So where I am weak, I am not as detail oriented. I am not as cleanly. Not that I'm filthy, I'm just not as cleanly. Having my fiance, she fills in from where I am weak. So I was just using that example as, you know, there is no perfect man, right? And there are benefits of having women in your life. The thing is, you have to have the right woman in your life. And that's why I said that it's extremely important for men to vet women. And also, I think it's extremely important to talk about the mindset before getting into marriage, because when I'm saying men need women, I'm not saying men need women to define who they are and their importance or anything like that. I think that's bullshit. I'm one of someone who's all about the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. And so if you need a woman to feel whole, then you're going about it the wrong way. If you need a woman to help within your life, to be a helpmate, to bring you to another level, you know, and she can fill in for your weaknesses and vice versa for her, or you want a family, which is normal, you know, those are the right reasons why you should get married. I think there are far too many men who get married to the woman they've been having sex with for a long period of time, and they don't want to lose that, and they never properly vet a woman. Like, that's like you're with a woman and your boys know that she's a hoe. Well, why are you marrying her? And then 2 years later, you're coming back like pissed off at women. No, you picked the wrong woman. Like, she was a hoe. Getting married doesn't change her. She wasn't marriage material. And some men aren't marriage material either. So when I'm advocating for marriage, I'm not saying every man should get married or even every woman should get married. That's ridiculous. But what I'm saying is, if you are a man or a woman who wants to get married, that's your end goal, then you need to go about it and do your fucking research on whoever you decide to choose as a potential marriage partner. If you're a woman, you need to find a man who actually wants to get married, not a man who will just cave into marriage. The shit won't work out. If you're a man looking to get married, you need to vet that woman to find out exactly what her mindset is, if she's willing to submit, if she's cooperative, is she friendly, or does she just have a big booty and she gives good head? Like, these things are important to find out, and you have to have a woman of substance. Now, I will admit, it's becoming more and more difficult for men these days to find a woman of substance, but it's not impossible.
Okay, stop right there. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not impossible. However, I would like you to address certain factors. You know what? Let's get to it like this. What do you think are the conditions that make it less and less possible?
Feminism.
Okay.
Straight up, feminism.
Let's go down that road. What's you know what? All right, let me ask a specific question then. How are men to address hell, the government, let's just put it that way, and the influence of the government, the legal system, and our relationships with women. Because in particularly, you know what? I'm all mixed up in the head because I really want to go somewhere with this, and I'm going to start from the beginning because even though we moved on, I want to go back just for a second to ask this question. Now, the quote that we spoke about in your book, why am I to distrust a white man when I couldn't even depend on my black father? Now, there's another side to that quote. Why am I to trust the government when the government is the main reason why I can't really be an effective black father? And to double down on that, the black woman who I must co-parent with is oftentimes acts as an agent or an arm of, essentially in conspiracy with that very government. That is, I think, a problem for a lot of men. Particularly, just between us brothers, so to speak. That is a problem. Particularly, it's an acute problem in Black America because of our numbers. For no other reason.
No, and you know what? I will not refute anything that you said. I'm completely aware of that, and I'll even go as far as saying, like, this is the good thing about having your woman red pill aware, because now that she's red pill aware and she sees certain things, she'll come back to me and be like, "Oh my God, I see it now. I see it," and I'm like, "Yep, that's exactly what's going on. This is the trouble that's happening within the Black community." Men who are trying to find women who are suitable for marriage, and like Kevin Samuels, for example, is a perfect example. So many of those women will come on his show and say, "I didn't want to get married." Well, why'd you have all these kids? "Oh, I didn't want to get married." So they have no problem birthing all these babies, but they don't want to take up marriage. And then they're wondering why their life is so chaotic. Well, that's because the institution of marriage is supposed to help you with this particular situation. And now they're coming when they're near 40, as they're realizing their way of thinking before, throughout their prime years was flawed. And now they want to try and make up. And unfortunately, Kevin says they're going to grow old and die alone, by a dog. And that's the reality. And we know people who are like that. I know people who are like that, and it's a very sad state of affairs. And I think when people hear someone like Kevin Samuels or even hear me now say something like that, they think that we're poking fun. I care about everybody. I care about Black people. I care about Black women, Black men. I care that Black women are being fed nonsense and that they're being led by fear. The fear of, the worst possible outcome of getting married, fear of Black men as if they're their oppressor. It's this feminist jargon that they're constantly spewing. And what's hilarious to me is that if you were to ask them, "Are you a feminist?" they would say no. They don't even realize how programmed they are.
Right there, right there. It's going to be kind of a rough segue because you said a lot of fireballs just now, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to stop them," but I want to pull up this next clip, and shout out to the real Dana. I love hating her. She's not so bad. She's all right, but
no, she's cool.
Like you just said, sometimes it's like you can just hear the feminism coming out of you, and you swear you're not a feminist. And this isn't a particularly feminist clip she's about to make, but this is just an observation I had about Dana. Now, however, what she's going to say right now is something I want to ask you about, Black women on the whole, because what she says right now is very interesting. It's something I tend to hear quite frequently.
Just to touch on that, right? Expound on that. When we're talking about Black people, experience that or going through that, it's the reason why our experience here in America, and then even throughout the world, but just here in America, is different from other people, different from white people, different from immigrants. We have to go back to slavery, because what came out of slavery? People don't think that PTSD, post-traumatic is not a real thing, and it is. That is something that's very real. Trauma is genetic. That could be passed down through your genes. So you go from slavery, and out of slavery, we did develop PTSD. And out of that, Did I say those in PTSD, right?
Now, where this is all headed is, because of slavery, I can't apparently be a good wife and mom or some shit like that. Some roundabout way of getting to that point. And, we started out this show talking about your book and really the theme of your book, From Victim to Victor. Mm-hmm. And what I see there is obviously a little bit of victimhood in that. But the question I had to ask you is, Black feminism in particular, under the umbrella of feminism at large, Black feminism in particular, it seems to be, and maybe this is at a unique moment, and maybe this is just the way it's always been, but it seems to be we're at a moment where we are in the grips of Black feminism in particular, especially in the Black community. And how deep do you think that goes with Black women? Because what I see here is essentially hiding behind problems that were never yours to defend actions that are solely yours.
Yeah, it's very deep. Listen, I'm only one person, so I can only experience so much. Personally, I think it's gotten worse as I've gotten older. I know that there are different content creators who have different ideas as to why it got so bad. What messaging did Black women absorb? But I don't know where it came from. I don't know the origins, but it's the Miss Independent attitude that has been a real killer, because it acts like it gives Black women strength, but in reality, it leads them down a path of unhappiness. That's the very common core of what I see. So they may be living their best life when they're, 22, 23, but add 10, 15 years later to that, we see what the Miss Independent life looks like. Either childless, or they have children, no man around, and struggling to keep afloat. And there's this, it's always funny to me when they bring up like someone like Beyonce, as if Beyonce's the norm or even close to being the norm. Or they bring up, the one random lawyer who makes, 100,000+. The reality is, and the statistics show, the reality for single Black women with children is that their net worth is zero on average. They're living check to check. And meanwhile, they're expected to take care of kids and live their life like a man. And I'm just seeing the unnatural become the norm within the Black community. It's not natural for a woman to take on the shoulder of the load, and on top of that, be the nurturer. And what's going to end up taking place, and what's been taking place, is that they're taking on the masculine role, and they're living the masculine role, they're dating in the masculine role, they're seeing the world in a masculine role. And here we are as the men looking for a feminine Black woman, and they're becoming less and less and less.
Speaking of feminine Black women, that's a great segue to the next clip. Now, I'm just going to sort of jump this clip right in there with no introduction, and I would like to just get your raw take on what you watch on the screen, in light of your comments about, seeking feminine Black women.
Yeah.
This is one race. I'm not done. You know what I'm capable of.
Oh, wait, I suck. I'm so sorry. Sometimes I just become so unprofessional. Let me press the button I'm supposed to press before I do that.
This is one race. I'm not done. You know what I'm capable of. Count me out if you want to. Talk all the shit you want, because I'm here to stay. I'm not done. I'm the 6th fastest woman in this game ever. And can't nobody ever take that from me.
Wait, did she just brag about number 6? Oh, shit. I had no idea you could get bragging rights. I thought, what was that Talladega Nights guy, Bobby something? Ricky Bobby. Ricky Bobby said, if you're not first, you're last. I had no idea number 6 was even a thing. That's right. All right, but I'm sorry. I'm stepping all over it. I need to get your take on the femininity we just witnessed here.
There is none.
Come on.
The first thing I think is that she's for the streets. This is the chick I wouldn't talk to for anything as a dating prospect. And you know, I find it funny because like we have so many Black women who talk about the Eurocentric viewpoint and you know, Black is beautiful and all this stuff. She has a blonde weave. She has long ass fingernails that are not natural whatsoever. She got man like a jailhouse dude. She got tats like a jailhouse dude, and
Talks like
her,
one.
she talks like one, and she got her eyelashes are definitely not hers. So like everything about her is a masculine frame. And I actually like to go to my man, Minister Jap, is a perfect phrase. Transsexualized energy.
Bro, yeah, shout out to the minister. I swear that is the only church I go to on YouTube. But he was saying something. He was going off on a tear for a while, but that whole thing about transsexualized energy was like he was at the peak for a minute with that. Like, bro, it almost gets nothing. It almost doesn't get better than that. That was a perfect description because what you're looking at right here, it's like you're trying everything. I mean, listen, if she closed her eye and squeezed real hard, she could probably grow a penis. Like the way she's putting it right now. And I also, you know, to speak of the whole European beauty standard thing, it's one thing to copy European hair, right? Mm-hmm. But why are the top of your eyelids blonde also? I didn't even know, like, there's not even hair up there. Why is they blonde too? I don't get why they... all right, I'm going off on a tangent. I don't even want to do that. But the thing is, I actually... Listen, I'm in Brooklyn. I be around, you know, the people. You know what I'm saying? I'm out there, and I see how it is. And I can tell you, that energy is the norm at this point.
Yeah.
You know, and I say this as a joke to my you know, homeboys or whatever, but like, you know, I'm really looking for like the Black girl with the white girl energy, because majority of them act like this, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like no bullshit. All right, how we supposed to be in a relationship together, and you try and be the real nigga, and you want to be with a real nigga? Like both one of them is bad enough, but the combination together is like this was never meant to work. And how do we get back to femininity? And more specifically, for, you know, man to man, so to speak, how do we get back to femininity unless we're willing to, you know, have the iron hand with the velvet glove?
I mean, there's no real easy answer. I mean, and not for nothing, not to rub it in your face, but my fiance, born and raised in Brooklyn, Black woman. So, I mean, it's possible, but I'm sure it's difficult.
Nah, go ahead, man.
You know, not for nothing. Like, if I was still in the scene, I would be open to anybody and everybody. You know, just being transparent. My son is mixed race. His mother's white, and I hate the narrative that Black men hate Black women, or if you date outside your race, you all of a sudden are some sort of traitor, or you don't like Black women. Part of the reason why I was dating women of all different types is because back then, Black women didn't give me the time of day. You know, they were going after the bad boys. I was this quiet kid, a little bit nerdy, and none of them gave me a time of the day until I got into my mid-20s, because I had a steady job and I was doing okay. Then all of a sudden I looked attractive. So, you know, it's not necessarily a shot at them, but that was just a reality for myself. But I think if you're looking for a feminine woman, it doesn't matter what she looks like, in my opinion. I'm open to anybody and everybody, but I get it. If most people want to stay within their own race, you do what you have to do. If happiness looks different, then that's what happiness is. I think the objective in life is to be happy with someone that you love, you cherish. And if you want to get married, then to me, it doesn't matter as much what they look like.
What do you think about this little bit? And actually, let me ask you this: how are you looking on time? Because I was going to ask you if
no, don't worry, man. I'm having a good time. Don't worry.
Okay, so I was going to open a panel up for at least 30 minutes, and you know, if there was anyone in the chat, You know, and shout out to the Prophet of Thought. Yo, if you're not doing nothing, I would love to get you up here right now. SKC, if you're somewhere in the clouds, you know, feel free to drop in. But I'm dropping a link in the chat. So if anybody wants to come up and have just a conversation, ask some questions to the guest, I am going to throw the link in just a moment. Now, that being said, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about this this very intense level of acrimony between black men and black women? And more specifically, there's something that I find kind of hilarious just in my own observations. Yeah. There's a group of black men who are, just like you said, you know, they want to get out. They would love to get a black woman, but they kind of look at the odds like, yeah, you know, for a lot of the reasons even you just sort of said, the way life turned out and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, there are a lot of black men who are just saying, you know, we should date out. It's just you have better odds of finding a more compatible match outside of black America with the state of affairs being they are. And you have a group of black women who say relatively the same things for a little bit more, you know what, let's be fair. Let's assume they are both on the same moral and observational playing field, but they're coming from, you know, male and female perspectives now. Right. There seems to be a little bit of beef between those groups, and I think that's the funniest thing ever. So it's like you got the black men who want to date out, and you got the black women who want to date out, but they both looking across the aisle at each other like, yo, fuck them niggas, fuck them bitches. I think it's hilarious, but it's sad. But you know what? What do you think about that whole level of affairs right now?
It's funny that you say that, because I always kind of felt that black men didn't really care if some black women did date out. I mean, overwhelmingly, people date within their own race. But you know, the handful that do date outside or marry outside or have children outside, I didn't think black men really cared that much. I always saw, and maybe it's just me from a male perspective, I always saw more animosity, more snide comments, more things like that coming from the black female side if a black man goes out, especially if he is a successful black man and he dates out, because they feel like you got successful and you left the community. That's even more of like a dig at them. Like they take it very personal. I've actually had this conversation with my fiance, just kind of like trying to understand why that's the case, why you think that way. So it's interesting.
Let me just jump in before, because I would like to actually get you to finish that sentence, but I wanted to jump in and make a prediction and say this. Mm-hmm. I tried to lay out the question as fairly as I could. Oh, Little Big Nate, what's going on, man? I'm about to throw the link in the chat actually right now. So if you guys wanted to come in and chop it up for a second, please do. But yes, I laid out the question as fair as I possibly could. However, it's been my observation that you are relatively correct. And so what I would ask you is this, and then I wanted to ask you what your wife said about this, but it seems to me that black men, or men rather, are more territorial about individual women as opposed to women as a group. Meaning, if you're my woman, then I'll fight, die for you. I'll do all that crazy shit. I'll get jealous and everything. But if you're just one of our women, you know, I don't even care for that term sometimes, but if you're just one of our women, then it's like, not necessarily going to go out on a limb. Whereas women, on the other hand, and black women in particular, because I don't know if you get this from white women as much. I don't know. I haven't explored it, so I'm kind of iffy on it. But just throw it out there. I wonder if black women are unique in that they are they are actually protecting the borders of all of their men. And it's a weird sort of, just maybe it's a gender difference, maybe men and women just, you know, left brain, right brain sort of shit. But it seems to me that that's how black women are operating, in that they're protecting sort of all of their men. And so they don't really get why black men don't see it the same way, because black women are like, black men are like, look, I need my woman and I don't really have to care what the rest of women do. So what do you think about that? And then what was your wife's explanation about these affairs? And welcome X to the panel. Just give me 1 second. Let's get through this answer, please.
Yeah. you know, the way it was a while ago she said it to me, so I'm trying to remember exactly, but she kind of explained it as almost like a personal slight, like we're not good enough kind of thing. I was thinking about it. Maybe it has something to do with the dynamics between how relationships form between men and women. For men to have sex, it's much more difficult than women have sex. So women can view a pool of people as a potential, right? Men have to take, almost in a sense, take what comes available to them or take what they can get, depending on how you want to look at it. So if you're a woman, you see a pool of men, and then you see, a handful of them leave your pool, you're like, what? You're not good enough to be in my pool? Like, you're not good. Like, I'm not good enough here. Like, it's like a personal slight. Like, you're getting rid of some of her options. And especially if they're quote unquote high value men or something like that. That's even more of like, I don't know. I think a lot of women, especially if they really think highly of themselves, believe that every man is a potential get, and men think in the complete opposite. So I think maybe that plays into a part of it. It's like losing your option, and especially if he's a good option, and you left, that pisses him off, and it makes it like a personal offense.
Brother X, welcome to the show. How you doing, man? What's going on with you?
Peace to the hood conservative. Peace, brother Coleman. What's good with it?
Hey, nice to meet you.
I just had to come up here and speak on this girl here, man, because now she gets up here with this blonde mess in her hair, for starters, 5-inch eyelashes, wrap the claws on, and she stands up here and she tells everybody how she's the number 6 fastest person in the world. She raced against 8 other people that day, and all of them beat her. So that would make her maybe the 9th fastest person in the world that day. Or maybe the weed she was smoking. That's why she was able to run so fast before. Now that she's clean, she can't run fast, because I believe some of those women that were running in that race, she had beaten them before. So she's the 9th fastest person in the world now, and I'm sure that'll be dropping down to 19th in the run of a week or two. But when you look at this girl, man, and I ain't going to stay up here long, I just want to get up here and say this about her. She is a case study, all right? She's a case study for how these type of people, these type of women cannot see past their own selves, man. They cannot see past their own selves. I'm surprised she didn't say she was the fastest person, the fastest woman in the world, even though she came in dead last. Of course, remember, she came in dead last. She didn't even come in number 6. She wasn't 6th in that race. She was 9th, dead ass last. Let me say it again. Dead ass last. And the way she got up there and acted, you would have think she won 5 gold medals in the Olympics and just won just before she started talking here. She is a case study, man, of how delusional and out of their mind and also insane these women are. I feel for you young brothers. I do. I feel for you young brothers, boy. I feel for you, because no matter what, if you want to be in America and look for a black woman, unfortunately, this is what you have to deal with. That's all.
let me put a question out there if you still got some time here. Why do you think there is such a rush to defend her, not only by black men, but not only by black women, but by a significant number of black men as well? There's a there's a pylon to defend this woman. It's like you get excommunicated, or you risk excommunication if you attack this woman in public. So what do you guys think is the impetus behind defending her when she is so far beyond the pale?
You want me to go first?
Please.
Well, that's because the black woman's God. Didn't you know that?
Wait a minute. You can't be serious.
No.
Be serious. Oh man, wait.
But if man had to find out that his God was a woman,
I say the black woman is God, and
black woman is God.
I say the black woman is God.
The black woman is God because, she was the first organism on this planet.
You had that right on deck too. Jesus
I was
Christ.
It's a second, but I'm quick with this now. And but by the way, I just want to do a quick station announcement. I like everyone to know who's donated so far. I do see the cash apps coming through. I just want to save it for a minute. I didn't want to disrupt the conversation flow, but we will get to your cash apps in just a moment. So thank you so much. But continue with your answer. The black woman is God, you say?
Well, I mean, that's the notion. It's so strange to me because, we're supposed to live in a society where we're all equal, yet we're putting black women on a pedestal. I don't think we should put anybody on a pedestal. That way of thinking states that they are infallible. And as someone who's a Christian, calling a black woman a god seems off. Let's just put it that way. I don't think anybody who is living as a human being is a god status. There's only one God, in my opinion. So, overall, it's the same as calling queens or kings and queens, and it's this constant pick me up that people feel that black people need. And not for nothing, black women control the community. We live in a matriarchy. So if anybody wants to know what a matriarchy looks like, look at the Black American community. They're in control. They decide the parental rights. They decide what happens within the community. Everybody's given up all power to it. The black church bows down to black women. I mean, everybody caters to black women. And, that is the imbalance. There's no problem with if you want to uplift someone that you think deserves it, but we're artificially uplifting people who don't deserve anything simply because they were born with a certain genitalia and a certain skin color. And to me, that's off. I don't think we should celebrate anybody who doesn't deserve to be celebrated. And for her to come up here and talk shit as she comes in 6th place, as if she accomplished something. I mean, granted, I'm not out there running and I'm not competing for the Olympics. So in some ways, yeah, it's an accomplishment, but act like you've been there. You know what I'm saying? So that's my 2 cents.
Brother X, why do you think everybody's forming up to defend this young lady here? And right, listen, she is an Olympian just by default, but still, why is everyone forming up to defend this kind of behavior?
Well, I will piggyback off of Brother Coleman's statements, but see, I'll go a little further, Brother Hoodservative, because you know me. When you think about these type of things, right? I mean, she's not alone when you're talking about black women that do stupid stuff and everybody circle the wagons around them. I mean, she's not alone. It's for everybody. And what has happened with black women, particularly black women like her, the ones that are they got all these accoutrements on and they look like something out of a bad rock band, and it's almost as if they have been put into a place where they symbolize, we have made them a symbol of revolution, right? Because people say, oh, she's strong, she this, she that, she's the backbone of the community, she's a protected class, but at the same time, she's the most unprotected, which makes no sense to me. because they say, okay, she's a protected class, but you always hear people say, oh, well, black women are the most unprotected. That's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. Either she's protected or she's not. But see, we have put them in a place, and you know why we put them in this place? Because, see, they're in that place because, see, number one, they control the children, all right? And most of the children that come about come by way of these people. They raise most of the children in society, all right? In black society, I should say. They raise most of them. So that alone puts them into some type of place. It's almost as if she has a baby, she has arrived. She has become this special person, almost mystical and mythical in a sense, for the simple fact that she was able to push out a baby after 9 months. So when you look at women like this, they all symbolize that. They all symbolize Mother of the earth, God of the universe. And that's what people see. They are a symbol of revolution. They're a symbol of freedom, but they're a symbol of slavery at the same time. They're a symbol of power, but they're a symbol of weakness, all at the same time. All right. They are a symbol of success and riches, but they're a symbol of poverty, all at the same time. They are a symbol of the beginning of black society. They are a symbol of what black society is, because make no mistake, when they talk about black people, they're talking about her, these women. When they talk about the black family, they are talking about these women and kids. Men are not included in that. They are the representation of the black race. They are the representation of black society. They are. And they are that, whether they're broke, whether they're rich, whether they 6-figure chicks, or they living in the projects, smoking crack, wearing weave, wearing a business suit, no matter what it is, all she has to do is be black and female, and she is special. Even if she's fat. But that's all. I'm gonna jump up off of here, man. Thanks for having me on, Brotherhood Conservative. Peace, Brother Coleman, and I see Brother Trey down there as well, man. I will see you brothers on the other side. Peace.
What up, Max? Trey, I was going to ask a question. Good, jump in.
Yeah, I want to throw one other thing, and just as a fair comparison, I don't remember what year it was, but everybody remembers when Richard Sherman had a great game beating the 49ers, and he got on the microphone and said, "Don't you ever talk trash about me, I'm the best, blah, 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 blah." What did they do to Richard Sherman all the way into the Super Bowl? They destroyed this man. You would have thought he killed somebody as much as they were talking about him. This woman comes up here and essentially does the same. And not only that, she curses too. And look at that microphone. That's NBC, right? That's a prime station. That's a prime network. And she over there cursing. Don't be talking shit about me. This is the kind of mouth that came out of her, yet we're not allowed to criticize that. So it's okay if Richard Sherman gets criticism. Fine. All right, fine. He's an athlete. You know, he came at it strong. You want to criticize him? Fine. Equal opportunity. Why aren't we allowed to criticize her? And the reason being is, this doesn't matter what it is. You know who's in power if you can't criticize them. That is the person who's in power. And so when people come at this angle, like black women need to be protected, black women are this, black women are that, I'm like, wait a second. In the same breath, they're saying that apparently black women saved democracy. You know, black women are all these they're the most magical creatures, but at the same time, they're the most vulnerable creatures. They're infallible, but they're vulnerable. You know, it's these constant opposing viewpoints. But my biggest thing is we should be able to criticize anybody. Even in my own book, I criticize myself. I look at myself and I talk about my flaws and my imperfections. So this isn't me bigging up myself and pointing fingers at other people. everybody is up for fair criticism, and we
Well,
should be allowed to criticize her.
in that spirit, because this actually leads perfectly to the question I did want to ask you. And Trey, I see you there. I want you to follow up to his answer on this question here. I want you to speak to the role of Black mothers and Black motherhood. And actually, I'm going to leave it at that. I would like to just get your thoughts on Black motherhood in 2021.
You mean what it is or what it should be?
Wherever you want to go with that. Because actually, start out with what it is, because you'd have to build it up that way.
What it is right now, and what I'm seeing is it's a control aspect. Black mothers see parenting as a mechanism of control and not necessarily a mechanism of nurturing and family. So when I talk about the broken family, I'm saying also how we view what a family is. What does family mean if it's just a child and a mother? That's not a family. And now we've put a remix on what family is, as the Black father occasionally comes over and picks up his kids for a few hours and brings them back. Or the Black family is the father's not allowed to come around unless the mother says so. Or the Black family is the involvement in the government in deciding how much money should come out of his pocket and not being allowed to deliberate things with the mother. The Black family and a family is supposed to be actual togetherness, not this hodgepodge of a system that we have. And, I'm being critical of myself, even in the book. I had my son out of wedlock. I grew up without my father. I grew up in a house, a single parent home. To me, I didn't plan, bringing in a child in a proper way. I didn't have the same mindset at the age of 21 as I do today at the age of 37. If I did, I would have gone about it in a different way. I don't regret anything, but I just put my son in a particular danger by bringing him in the world the way I did. His life could have been far more difficult than it actually turned out to be, and it made me work even harder to be involved in his life because I don't see him every day. But to go back, what it is currently is Black women in control of the family to the point where it's detrimental to Black men and Black fathers. They have to tiptoe around the woman who is in control, who gets to decide everything, who can easily go to the state to get her way. And that her way is seen as the default in many cases, or overwhelming in many cases. So that's what it currently is. What it should be is proper family planning, men and women deciding who they actually sleep with when they want to actually have a family, or even just respecting the idea of having a family, having a true family where it is a mother and a father together, raising their children together. Divorces happen, people separate, but what I'm seeing is there's not even an attempt to have that. There are women who are specifically not wanting marriage, but they want children, right? That is the fucked up part of how people are viewing what family is. And, coming from a somewhat religious aspect, I see the disappearance of the father in the home, also with the disappearance of the importance of our Heavenly Father as well. So when I'm seeing immorality being celebrated, when I'm seeing dysfunction being, applauded or excused, I'm seeing all of these different things. I'm seeing a lack of morals, a lack of character, a lack of substance. And a lot of this, from my perspective, is a lack of religious principles as well. So, there was a huge link, especially in the Black community, as far as the family and also the religious family.
Trey, what's going on, man? Welcome to the panel. I want you to just jump right in the conversation. We already know you. I ain't gonna introduce your ass. So tell me, what do you think about the role of Black mothers in Black America in 2021?
Hey, what's going on, Adam?
What's up?
Chilling. Well, bro, Black mothers at this point are, to the tune of most of what we call the community, just a failed entity, bro. You know, as I was saying on Big, I think it was Big Nate's show. It's just a failed experiment. You know, they tried it in 1930 and didn't work. And then around 1960, boom, with LBJ, the whole new welfare stuff, bam, it worked. And so the 60-year experimentation is having a matriarchy has basically ended what we know as the Black community and turned it into the community. And it's done. It's a wrap. And at this point, what it's going to take is for brothers just to wake up and just walk away. Well, thank you, brothers, just to think up and walk away. Because right now, you have baby mamas out there in the lead, marching, protesting, wearing BLM shirts, talking about they're doing this for the community, they're doing this for their people, this, that, and the other. And it's going to take, groups of brothers to wake up and see that we are the way. What we're doing over here is the way. You just got to walk and look at them with indifference, because there's no society ever in the history of human beings where the women stand up and say, oh, we lead the way. No, you got to look at them like they're crazy. Be like, y'all ain't leading anything. The only reason why they're out there screaming, oh, we're doing this for the community, is because that's the only way they're going to get a man. They're going to look for the weakness in men, those men that are attached to their mama by the brain, in order to find somebody to come in and save them. The old stepdaddy days that are gone, long gone. Well, there's still dudes out there that's going to fall for that whole stepdaddy game. And these dudes are ripe for the picking. And bro, until that flow, well, I ain't going to say this, man. It's going to get to the point where the bears poke too much, and that segregation we're talking about, them baby mamas, them sisters are going to feel the pain, because people are going to get tired of Sha'Carri Richardsons, of the Naomi Osakas, of all the, what is her name? The little gymnast girl. Oh my God, my mental capabilities. Oh, you can't talk about me because I'm Black.
The quitter.
Yeah. No, we're going to talk about you. We're going to criticize you. And that's why they hate us, because can't say shit to us about calling them out. We're going to call them out day by day, 24/7. If anybody else wants to call them out on my show, come right ahead. I'll give you a pass, because it needs to stop. And this is coming from a man. Just so you know, Adam, man, I was married for 16 years to AB Dub. I got 4 Black kids, 3 daughters, all dark skinned, and like they don't know anything about the sisterhood. Thank God.
Yeah, man.
Now I want to pull up another clip here for you guys, and we're gonna wrap this up shortly. This will be the last sort of topic that we sort of branch off in a conversation about. But I was just sort of strolling through Twitter. I love farming content off of Twitter. It's a fabulous place to see how far the decay has gone in America. And I want to just pull up this clip for you right here. Oh, you know what? Let me just bam. Now, if you guys, well, actually, I know you're both familiar with Kevin Samuels, actually. So there's a concept going around called Winter is Coming. And I'm just going to play this clip, and I'm going to ask you to give your take on the future. Well, give your take on that idea of winter is coming after we go through this 30-second clip. This is, just to let you guys know, just a random scene from Boston, Beantown, the Northeast. I had no idea this sort of shit had spread to the Northeast.
Look at this. What's going on in our city? Come on, you guys. This is crazy.
Oh, wow.
Man, it looks like Haiti, bro.
Looks like Venice Beach.
Welcome to Boston.
Well, not the beach. Skid Row, maybe.
Crazy.
Well, that quick. Now, that's Boston. And like I said, it shocked me because I just found that like 5 minutes ago while we were still live. And what I wanted to ask you guys after looking at a clip like that is to give your take on this concept of winter is coming. And Trey, I want to start with you actually, and then we can close up with our star for the night. And Adam, I like to tell you, the chat loves you. Apparently, everybody thinks you're the shit right now, myself included. This is why I'm glad to have you on the show. So thanks for coming up tonight. But Trey, I wanted to get your take. Trey, on this concept of winter is coming. Because what I just saw, like I said, I'll say for the third time, I had no idea that the homeless encampment sprawl had spread to the East Coast. Like, is there just a trail of tents from Skid Row in Los Angeles all the way to Beantown? Like, how far is this problem going? But anyway, Trey, please tell me what you're thinking.
Bro, it's as the whole Amira versus Courtney debate rages on, that like 72 hour windows ago. The debate is still out there because, everybody's still focused on, a lot of what's going on Lapeef. And bro, basically right now, this is what it's looking at. The way Amira broke it down for Courtney, if you look at that, this strong, independent Black woman versus this submissive, Middle Eastern woman, is the pitfall of where the barbarian will end. A woman like Amira, they will be protected when the barbarian arrives. But Courtney, and those women like that, when the barbarian comes, bro, there'll be nobody to protect them because the men that they created and the men that they're looking for to save them do not have the strength or wherewithal to protect them. They don't have the masculinity to stand up and be like, no, I'm going out here to get me 2 or 3 jobs to take care of this family. No, I'm going to make sure I'm straight. No, because, when those rents go up, when that gentrification happens, when those taxes happen, man, what are them women going to do? They don't have the wherewithal to go out there to get that job, to get that. And like I said, the only thing they think is protecting them is the same men that they created that are up here going, but racism, but reparations going to save us. But they had his knee on his neck for. Those men are not going to stop the barbarians. Those men are only poking the bear. Now, when the bear moves out the way and the barbarians come take over, and it's a wrap for those people. And I'm not going to only include, the B-Dub, because a lot of white liberals are going right along with this because they're in happy lands. Y'all were talking about before. They're trying to save Black folks, which is at this point, hey, have at it. You know what? Have fun on that ship going down. Like I say, over here, we're on the Carpathia. And them have fun on the Titanic going down. And I'll be over there on my stream, man. I'm going to drop the link in the chat as y'all are closing up. Do this interview with Catalina. Man, Adam, it was good hearing you, bro. Man, hopefully we'll see you around here more often. All right, David.
All right, thanks a lot, Trey. And I'll stop by. We'll hang out a little bit on your stream. I'm going to wrap up this stream shortly. But please, Mr. Coleman, what is your take on this concept of winter is coming? And how do you think it's going to affect Black America, Black women, however you want to take it?
I think that our economy has been artificially inflated for women in general. So you can look at, they like to say the most educated, but what are they most educated in? And what professions are they actually going in? And are those professions economy proof? And I would say the one profession that tends to be economy proof is healthcare, which a lot of them are in. But other than that, in many ways, they're replaceable. And if they're not replaceable, their income gets cut. And so this goes back to what I was saying before. The family is important because 2 possible incomes is better than 1. And so while every other race seems to have it more together, and they have a better likeliness of having a household, even if they're not making that much money, separately, together, they're able to survive. That Miss Independent, who was working at a particular job that's not economy proof and in a struggling economy, she's going to hit the streets in many ways. So, but I mean, not for nothing, since the feminist movement, a lot of our economy has been overinflated, and our income potential has been kind of cut because of the growth in women working. So that's why it's even harder for families to have a single income. You have to make a ton of money, or not a ton of money, but you have to make a significant income to be a single earning household these days. And a lot of it has to do with the inflation of certain jobs, just to fit in another half of a workforce for women. This is not me saying that women shouldn't be working or anything like that. I think women should have the choice to work. But what I'm saying is that, to me, it seems purposeful to push women out of the home and to become income earners so they can spend more and become consumers, which is why they consume most. They buy more of the products throughout the economy. So, women are the consumers within the economy, and they're valuable for that. But how they're earning their money is not economy proof. I work in IT, and when shit was hitting the fan with COVID, I didn't lose my job. I can't say that for a lot of women who are working jobs where they can lay you off for a period of time. Even within the company that I work for, they laid off some people. I kept my job, and a lot of those people were women. So, I think he's right when it comes to winter is coming, and I think it's already here. It's just slowly becoming more and more obvious.
Yes, I actually agree with I agree with what both of you just said, and frankly, the winter is coming. I think men should be paying attention to this far. Obviously, women need to pay attention to it, but I think for men, it's going to get particularly brutal in that there are far more homeless shelters for women. Just one reality, and on that front, and it's going to be guys actually bearing the initial brunt of these things, because the safety nets will be held in reserve for the women and the children. That's just and to good for good reason, I would say, but still, that's the way it is, and that's the burden of masculinity and manhood. You will be sent out to suffer first. Right. And with that being said, I would like to tell you, thank you for coming to the show tonight. This was actually, in my humble opinion, I think this is a pretty great conversation. My first time ever actually interviewing a guest, and it seems like I interviewed a guest of relative substance and caliber, and the chat definitely agrees with you. And this has been a wonderful conversation. So I'd like to ask you in closing: is there any upcoming projects, anything you'd like to plug going forward? What do you have going on coming up after this stream?
Basically, on a weekly basis, I'm writing. So I publish articles on WrongSpeak Publishing. So you can go to wrongspeak.net. I either put up articles of myself, or if people want to contribute articles, they can reach out to me through the website. And, I help to publish articles for people occasionally as well. Anybody who wants to express themselves. I'm also writing weekly. I'm a weekly contributor for ScoonTV. So if you go to ScoonTV.com on a weekly basis, you'll see an article for myself. I'm becoming more active on Twitter, so I got a lot to say on there. But I always try to keep it thoughtful. I attack the idea, and I try not to attack people. And I try to think outside the box. So, I'm not worried about cancel culture or any of that nonsense. I'm a Christian. I believe that God is looking over me, and he'll protect me, and I'm strong enough to withstand anything that comes in my direction. So that's my viewpoint.
Wow, and strong viewpoint it is. I like to say it's been a great interview. I'm looking forward to having more conversations with more gentlemen like yourself, and frankly, more people. Period. This is a new avenue I think I'd like to go explore going forward as a channel, and I think I don't want to take up too much more of your time tonight. You've been a great sport hanging out this long. I'm going to drop you down in just a second and close out the show. Have a few words with my fans, my chat, my audience. I don't know sometimes. But thank you one last time for coming in. I want to actually quick shout out. So I noticed I saw a couple of people in the chat announce purchases of the book, and
thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here. I would hope at the very least we could get you a couple of sales and just a little bit more, spreading the message, as they say. So I'm gonna let you go, man. And thank you so much for coming up here. Don't be a stranger. And probably gonna have you. I'm probably gonna ask you to come on again at some point in the future, whenever something else is going on, because you're an awesome guest and your opinions are very interesting to discuss. So thanks for coming up, man. I'm going to drop you off. Have a good night, bro.
You too. Thank you.
So, guys, wow. That being said, I want to thank everyone who tuned in and listened tonight. I told you guys I was gonna get to the Cash Apps after we got through the conversation because I really did not want to disrupt the flow of the conversation. You guys are awesome. You guys are really awesome, chat. I mean that. Like, sometimes I'm just like amazed that this little thing I decided to do on YouTube even grew to this modest size, and I couldn't have got here without you guys' support. That being said, I like to start out with my man Daryl 90210 for the $10 Cash App.
I need that money.
He says, congrats on the landmark episode. You're the best. Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate that. And I've been trying to just think about, I really do think about trying to put out a product worthy of you guys hour and a half, 2 hours worth of attention. So anytime you do remind me of that, it is not unappreciated.
Hulk! Smash! Smash you! You make Hulk angry! You not like Hulk angry! Hulk no like fighting girls.
And also, shout out to my man, JP Instafabi for the $4 Cash App. He says, great interview, much blessings. And thank you so much. I noticed you were hanging in the chat pretty much the whole conversation, bro. And I would assume you were just as interested in what this man had to say as I was. It was a very interesting conversation. This is one of those talks I'm probably going to go back and re-listen to just because, like, you don't always hear the kinds of the points of view that are just honest and real. And to be fair, he doesn't even come off with like the kind of venom or the anger that I may come off with, but it still, cuts to the bone. And that's all you could ask for sometimes. So thank you for that $4 Cash App, my man.
I need that money.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
And closing it out for the night, we got my man Rectalingus with the $20 Cash App. He says, excellent guest. Would love to talk to him more. I'm gonna try to make that happen for you. We gotta give us some space in between things. We gotta let events take their shape, and something crazy will happen. Like, I didn't even get to ask the man about Afghanistan and us looking crazy on the national stage. I didn't ask him about China. I didn't even ask him about critical race theory. Like, there's tons and tons of content we could get to at a later date, but we will talk to the man at some point in the future. But, we got to ease our way into these things. I'm new at this. I'm new at the interview game. I don't even know if I'm really, really that good at it yet. So I'm just going to keep trying. But still, thanks a lot for the Cash App, bro. Appreciate you, man.
Hulk! Smash! Smash you! You make Hulk angry. You not like Hulk angry. Hulk no like fighting girls.
Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, yes, yeah, and Daryl, you are absolutely right. I am kind of behind on my workload, so to speak. And I had to get a couple shows out the way. I had to do Australia because it was bothering me on a moral level that I couldn't say a word about Australia, but I could talk about all this other goofy shit. So I had to get out the way. I had to talk to Adam Coleman today. I have one more stream loaded up, ready to go, got all the clips set up. We're going to set that up tomorrow morning, and then it's back to working on This Week in Oppression, and it will be back Sunday. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be all kinds of fucked up oppression stories to tell until then. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, oh yeah, didn't even talk about the Rooftop Koreans, right? So much stuff. But that being said, I got to go. I got to get out of here. Trader MBD is going to fire up a stream. He's probably got it pre-gaming right now, so I'm sure the link was in the chat already. If you guys are ready, Go hit the link to Trey, the MBD stream. He's going to be interviewing Catalina Castillo. I have no idea what they're going to be talking about, but she always sounds sexy talking about everything. So hop on over there, and I think that's about it. I don't think I have anything left to say to you guys. Have a good night, y'all.
Good afternoon, boys and girls.